Truckers driving along the Dalton Highway, a 442-mile stretch of cold isolation cutting through Alaska's wilderness, often speak of a strange figure who appears when the night is at its darkest. She is described as a young woman in a thin, white dress, standing by the roadside with one arm raised, begging for a ride. The oddest part, she is seen even when temperatures drop to 40 below zero, and there are no towns or shelters for hundreds of miles. Truckers say they feel an overwhelming sense of dread when they first spot her pale figure, illuminated by their headlights. One seasoned trucker recalled slowing down as he approached her. She looked lost, helpless, her bare feet pressed against the icy snow. But as soon as he reached for the door handle to let her in, she simply vanished. His headlights shone only on empty road and blowing snow. He swore the hair on the back of his neck stood straight as he heard a whisper in his cab, though he was completely alone. That whisper, he claimed, repeated his name. Other drivers tell a darker story, that she does not vanish outside the truck, but instead climbs inside without ever being seen. More than one trucker has claimed to glance in the rearview mirror, only to find her seated quietly in the back, her face pale and her eyes dark, watching silently. By the time they pull over in panic, she's gone, leaving nothing but a lingering chill in the cab. Some drivers even report a strong scent of wet earth, as if she had just crawled out of the ground. Folklore in the nearby towns ties the apparition to a young woman who supposedly froze to death after her car broke down along the Dalton in the 1970s. Locals claim her body was never properly buried, and her restless spirit now haunts the same stretch of highway where she perished. The stories gained momentum when more than one trucker described her appearance as identical. Long black hair matted with ice, hollow eyes, and lips that move as though whispering, though no sound ever comes. Truckers have tried to rationalize the sightings: exhaustion, snow mirages, the tricks of low visibility. But the accounts are too similar, too detailed, and too consistent across the decades to dismiss so easily. Some veterans of the Dalton even warn new drivers to never stop if they see her, no matter how real she looks. Because once you let her inside, they say she may never leave. The tundra of Alaska is a place unlike any other. Vast, empty, and unforgiving. For hundreds of miles, there is nothing but snow, covered ground stretching into endless darkness. Yet truckers say that sometimes, when the wind dies down and the night grows eerily silent, the tundra comes alive with something unnatural. One driver described it as a sound that had no right to exist in a place so empty. A shriek, raw and human, echoing across the frozen landscape. It wasn't the howl of an animal or the groan of shifting ice. It was the scream of someone in pain. A trucker named Alan once recounted his chilling experience. At around 3 a.m., he was hauling supplies through a particularly desolate stretch when the screams began. At first, he thought it was his radio picking up interference, but when he shut it off, the noise only grew louder. Against his better judgment, he pulled to the side of the road and stepped out into the snow. The screams echoed all around him, bouncing from nowhere and everywhere at once. His breath hung in the air as he turned in circles, flashlight cutting through the mist, but there was no one there. Then came the most unsettling detail. Alan swore that as he strained to listen, the screaming shifted in tone, almost as if whoever, or whatever, was making it had noticed him. It grew closer, sharper, until he felt it just behind him. He spun around, heart hammering, only to find empty space and his own long shadow stretching across the snow. Terrified, he jumped back into his cab and slammed the door shut, but the sound didn't stop. For the next 10 miles, he claimed, the screaming followed him, riding the wind as if it were chasing his truck. Other truckers have told nearly identical stories. Some describe hearing the screams directly outside their rigs, as if someone was pounding on the door and begging to be let in. A few even claimed to see faint shapes moving along the snowbanks, flickering in and out of the mist like figures half formed. No tracks were ever found, no evidence of a person or animal could explain the cries. And yet, each time, the screams would eventually fade into silence, leaving drivers shaken, exhausted, and unsure if what they heard was real or something else entirely. Locals whisper an unsettling theory that the tundra is haunted by the souls of those who never made it out alive. In the brutal Alaskan wilderness, many travelers and hunters froze to death long before help could ever arrive. Their final cries of despair, they say, remain trapped in the snow, echoing back into the night for anyone unlucky enough to pass by. Truckers who hear the screaming are warned not to investigate, because the tundra does not give back those who follow the voices. On the endless highways of Alaska, truckers often find comfort in seeing another vehicle's lights in the distance. In a land where isolation can crush the mind, even a pair of headlights can mean safety. But what happens when those headlights never pass? Many drivers have spoken of a chilling phenomenon: bright beams appearing in their mirrors or behind them, following for miles, yet never catching up, never fading, never stopping. Just constant, haunting light in the darkness. One trucker named Bill told of a night when he was certain another rig was tailing him. He could see the glow of two headlights stretching across the icy fog, steady and unwavering. He radioed out to ask if anyone else was on the road, but no one responded. For over an hour, the lights stayed with him, never pulling closer, never falling back. Finally, unnerved, he slowed to a crawl and pulled onto the shoulder. The headlights vanished instantly. When he stepped outside, he found only silence and snow, no tracks, no engine, nothing at all. Others describe the same experience in terrifying detail. Some truckers claim the lights are so close, they can practically see the vehicle's grille through their mirrors. Yet when they blink, it's gone. A few swear they've been followed for hours, only to discover they were the only driver on that stretch of road for days. To make it worse, some witnesses say that when the lights disappear, their trucks immediately suffer malfunctions. Engines stalling, batteries dying, or radios suddenly cutting out in static-filled bursts. Legends say these headlights belong to truckers who never made it home. Brutal crashes on icy mountain passes, rigs overturned in snowstorms, drivers frozen before help could arrive. Their vehicles are gone, but their presence remains. The phantom headlights, some believe, are ghostly convoys doomed to follow the living, searching endlessly for a destination they'll never reach. More superstitious drivers refuse to look directly into their mirrors when the lights appear, fearing that locking eyes with them means inviting disaster. The stories grew even darker when multiple truckers claimed the lights weren't just behind them, but alongside them. One man swore he drove miles with headlights keeping pace on the passenger side, visible just beyond the snowdrift. But when he finally looked, there was no road there, only a frozen cliff that dropped hundreds of feet into darkness. The lights had been moving with him in mid-air. His hands shook as he admitted, "If I had looked sooner, maybe I would have driven right off." Late one winter night, a veteran trucker named Carl was hauling supplies along a desolate stretch of road when his headlights caught something unusual. At first, he thought it was a snowbank or a block of ice on the asphalt. But as he drew closer, the shape became clearer. Standing in the middle of the road was a man, motionless, rigid and pale as the snow itself. His eyes were wide open, staring directly at Carl's approaching truck, and his skin glistened as though frozen solid. Carl swerved at the last second, his tires skidding across the icy road. Heart pounding, he gripped the wheel and looked back through his mirrors. But the road was empty. No figure, no shadow, nothing at all. Confused, he pulled over, climbed out with a flashlight, and retraced his tracks. He expected to see footprints, or at least some sign that someone had been standing there. But the snow was untouched. No prints, no drag marks. Just the long, lonely stretch of the Dalton Highway. Other truckers have told nearly identical stories. The figure always appears the same: a man with ice-coated skin, frost clinging to his clothing, and lips slightly parted as if frozen in mid-scream. Some drivers say they nearly hit him, only for him to dissolve into the air like blowing snow. A few even reported that when they swerved, the frozen man turned his head slowly to watch them pass, his unblinking eyes glowing faintly in the glare of their headlights. Local rumors tie the figure to an accident decades ago, when a young driver's rig broke down during a brutal snowstorm. Temperatures plummeted overnight, and rescue teams didn't arrive in time. They found his truck half buried in ice, but his body was never recovered. Old-timers say the frozen man still walks that stretch of highway, searching for help that never came. Some even claim his ghost tries to step into oncoming trucks, forcing drivers to crash the way he did. Perhaps the most unsettling detail comes from those who say the encounter doesn't end on the road. A handful of truckers swear that after seeing the frozen man, they've felt him inside their cab. The air grows frigid, breath fogs up, and in the rearview mirror, for just a split second, they glimpse him sitting in the passenger seat. Skin bluish, white, eyes staring forward, silent as death itself. In the winter of 1999, a trucker named David set out on a routine haul across Alaska's brutal highways. The weather was unforgiving. Snowstorms whipped across the road, and temperatures dropped to deadly lows. Still, David was experienced, and he kept in constant contact with dispatch as he made his way through the wilderness. But somewhere along the way, those radio updates stopped. At first, dispatch thought the storm had caused interference. Hours passed, and when David failed to arrive at his destination, a search team was sent out. What they found only deepened the mystery. David's rig was discovered on the side of the road, still idling, headlights piercing through the blizzard. The driver's side door was wide open, and the cab heater was running, blowing warm air into an empty seat. There were no signs of a struggle, no signs of damage, and no indication that David had left in distress. His thermos was still half full of coffee, and his logbook sat open on the dashboard. But what unsettled investigators most was the snow around the truck, completely untouched, with not a single footprint leading away. Rumors spread quickly among the trucking community. Some believed David had fallen victim to the elements, wandering off and becoming lost in the storm. But experienced drivers knew that theory didn't fit. A man leaving his truck in that cold would leave tracks, no matter what. And besides, no body was ever found. Others began to whisper a darker possibility, that David hadn't simply walked away, but had been taken. Several truckers claimed to have seen strange lights in the sky on the same night David vanished. Glowing orbs that hovered silently above the tundra before vanishing into the storm. A few even admitted that they avoided that route entirely after his disappearance, convinced that something out there on the frozen highway was hunting the living. Some said it was the spirits of the dead. Others believed it was something not of this world. To this day, the legend of The trucker who never arrived lingers on Alaska's highways. Drivers claim that on certain nights, they can still hear faint radio chatter on their CB, a voice crackling through the static that sounds eerily like David's, calling out for help. Those who respond are met with silence, their radios filled only with the low hum of the storm. And as the story goes, if you hear his voice on the road and answer, you might never arrive at your destination either. Among Alaska's truckers, few legends inspire more dread than the story of the black dog. They call it an omen, a shadowy beast that appears on the roadside or even alongside moving rigs, heralding tragedy. Descriptions are eerily consistent. A massive black dog, far larger than any wolf, with glowing red eyes and fur so dark, it seems to swallow the headlights around it. Some truckers say its presence is not just seen, but felt. The air grows heavy, the cab chills, and an overwhelming sense of doom creeps into the driver's chest the moment it appears. One driver, named Richard, swore that late one night, he spotted the dog pacing his 18-wheeler at 70 miles per hour. Its paws never touched the ground, and yet it moved effortlessly alongside the truck, its eyes locked on him through the passenger side window. Terrified, Richard gripped the wheel until his knuckles went white. Minutes later, his brakes failed without warning, sending his rig into a terrifying skid on an icy curve. Somehow, he survived. But he claimed the last thing he saw before regaining control was the black dog vanishing into the snow. Other stories are even darker. A handful of drivers who reported seeing the dog were later found dead in wrecks, their rigs overturned or burned out on the side of the road. Some claimed that the dog would appear in their headlights, forcing them to swerve, while others believed it simply brought misfortune with its gaze. One chilling tale recounts a trucker who admitted seeing the dog one night, only to be crushed under his own trailer days later, when it inexplicably jackknifed on a clear, dry road. His last words to his fellow drivers had been, "The dog's still following me." Folklore ties the black dog to old European legends of death omens. Spectral hounds said to guard the border between the living and the dead. Some Alaskan natives even connect it to shapeshifters or malevolent spirits, drawn to those who spend too much time alone in the frozen wilderness. Whether ghost, demon, or hallucination brought on by exhaustion, the sightings remain remarkably consistent across decades and drivers. And every time, the same pattern follows: the dog appears. Disaster strikes soon after. Truckers who've been on the Dalton Highway for years often warn newcomers with the same advice. If you see the dog, don't speak of it. Don't slow down, don't stop, and don't make eye contact with its glowing eyes. Because once you acknowledge it, they say, the black dog of death doesn't just follow you on the road. It follows you everywhere, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. On certain nights, when the fog rolls thick and the snow blinds everything beyond the beams of a headlight, truckers on Alaska's highways claim to see something impossible. They speak of an entire line of trucks ahead of them. 3, sometimes 5, sometimes even more, moving in eerie unison. Their silhouettes are clear, their headlights bright, their trailers cutting through the mist. To the wary driver, it looks like company, a convoy to break the loneliness of the road. But when the radio calls out for contact, there is no response. Not a single voice, not even static, just silence. One trucker named Sam swore he followed such a convoy for nearly 20 miles. He kept a steady pace, comforted by the glowing red taillights of the trucks ahead. Yet no matter how much he pressed the accelerator, he could never quite close the distance. The lights stayed just far enough to remain visible, but always out of reach. Finally, He floored it, determined to catch up. And in that instant, the lights blinked out. Every single one. When he skidded to a halt, he realized the road ahead was completely empty. There had never been another vehicle there at all. Others who have seen the Silent Convoy describe a creeping dread the longer they follow it. Some drivers say their radios buzz with faint whispers, like CB chatter from another time. Others report hearing phantom engines growling around them, the vibration rattling their cabs, even though they're the only truck on the road. The truly unlucky ones claim the convoy doesn't vanish ahead. It surrounds them. Trucks appear in the mirrors, on both sides, even behind, hemming them in. But when they stop to look, there's only darkness. The legends say these ghostly convoys are the remnants of truckers who never made it through Alaska's brutal passes. Entire rigs lost to avalanches, drivers buried in snowstorms, accidents that wiped out multiple vehicles in chain collisions. Their spirits are said to drive forever, trapped in an endless line of headlights, repeating their final journey over and over again. Some truckers whisper that if you ever join the convoy too closely, you'll become part of it, your own rig disappearing into the mist, never to be seen again. Veteran drivers offer a chilling warning to rookies. If you see those taillights in the fog, don't follow. Don't trust them. Because sometimes, the convoy doesn't lead you down the highway at all. Sometimes, it leads you off the road, into the white void of the tundra, and once you leave the pavement, there's no coming back. Alaska's highways are more than stretches of frozen asphalt. They are corridors of mystery, haunted by shadows of the past and whispers carried by the wind. From the phantom hitchhiker who vanishes into thin air, to the screaming voices that echo across the tundra. From headlights that never pass, to the frozen man who watches silently in the dark, every mile carries a story etched in fear. The trucker who never arrived, the black dog that stalks the living, and the ghostly convoy that leads drivers into the void. These are not tales told for comfort. They are warnings, passed down by those who lived to tell them. So, the next time you find yourself driving through the endless white silence of Alaska, remember, what you see in your mirrors may not be real, and what you hear in the distance may not belong to the living. Out there, the line between life and death blurs, and sometimes, the road doesn't want to let you go.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.